in Scotland and out here at this amazing estate. And again, we have got some windows open. I think I'm just getting a bit sort of risky, thinking about the risk of the pandemic and making sure that we've got enough air circulating. So apologies for my earlier intervention. So fantastic to be here at the Global Ethical Finance Initiative. Climate change, as we know, is global, but its impacts will be felt here in Scotland, just as they are and were south of the border last week when we saw some flooding in Cumbria, as well as here in Scotland. This reminded me of the December 2015, when the Paris Agreement was signed. I was at COP26 as part of a UK finance delegation calling for the transition to a low-carbon economy, and I had to leave the negotiating hall to be briefed about the terrible floods in Carlisle. It's a reminder that while the climate crisis is global, it's also very personal. But the recent heavy rain is also a reminder that when we invest in resilience, we can make a difference. Last week, over 1,400 properties in Cumbria were protected by flood protections. A few weeks ago, the Environment Agency launched our third report to ministers under the Climate Change Act about how we are helping England prepare for climate impacts. More than 76,000 incidents were reported to the Environment Agency's Incident Management Service last year, including flood, drought, fires, fish kills, and pollution incidents. That's 1 every 7 minutes, 24 hours a day. And climate change is increasing their severity, frequency, and duration. The UK government's official goals for COP26 are, as we know, to secure global net zero by mid-century and keep to 1.5 degrees, keep it within reach, and to adapt to protect communities and natural habitats. We need to do both, because while mitigation might save the planet, it is adaptation that will save millions of lives and livelihoods. Choosing one over the other is like telling a bird it only needs one wing to fly. And to deliver both goals, we need a whole raft of changes in society and business. But we will stumble and fall without investment in nature. On the 27th of February 2020, Sir David Attenborough spoke at the launch of the COP26 private finance agenda, and he said, "I make no pretense to understand the complexities of the global financial system, but in a lifetime of observing the natural world, I do have some understanding of the equally complex natural systems that underpin our civilizations and trade. And I can tell you," and he was talking to the great and the good of the finance world, "I can tell you firsthand that those systems are collapsing, and anything built upon their assumed future stability is on very shaky foundations indeed." The day before, I was on the River Severn, on a bridge in Bewdley, where the river was roaring, and one of my colleagues said to me, he'd worked on the River Severn for about 20 years, "I've never seen her so angry." To manage climate change, we need to see finance and nature working as one. This year, the UK government sent a very clear signal about the direction of travel by saying that nationally significant infrastructure projects will need to ensure biodiversity net gain. The money and tools to do this are there, but we need help. We need to help finance understand how to join the dots and deliver returns. Dame Caroline Mason, who's Chief Executive of the Esme Fairbairn Foundation and a member of the Environment Agency Board, has said, if we understand the models that can make money and can be funded through private capital, we can raise additional money for nature and make sure that public and philanthropic funding goes where it's most needed. The Global Commission on Adaptation has said that compared with traditional infrastructure, nature-based solutions deliver more jobs per dollar, higher economic returns, and are faster to implement and more sustainable in the long run. For example, restoring mangrove forests that protect from sea level rise and storm surges is 2 to 5 times cheaper than building engineered structures, and wetland ecosystems provide services worth up to $15 trillion around the world, including flood protection, fisheries habitat, and water purification. In March, the Environment Agency in England, along with our partners, completed the government's 6-year, £2.6 billion flood and coastal erosion programme on time and on budget. That means that 300,000 homes, nearly 600,000 acres of agricultural land, thousands of businesses and major pieces of infrastructure are better protected from flooding. This week, the Environment Agency published the Natural Flood Management Report, and this reviews a £15 million programme reducing flood risk by planting trees, creating leaky barriers, restoring peatland, and restoring salt marshes. By using small interventions in flood risk areas, we created an equivalent of 1.6 million cubic metres of water storage. This improved 4,000 hectares of habitat and planted 100 hectares of woodland. The report has highlighted the power of nature alongside conventional defences. It shows how nature-based solutions within heavily engineered landscapes can help address biodiversity loss as well as the climate crisis. The Green Finance Institute is the UK's principal forum for public and private sector collaboration in green finance. And I'm also interim chair of the Green Finance Institute. It aims to identify and unlock barriers to deploy capital at pace and scale that will deliver action and positive environmental outcomes on the ground. In October, analysis from the Green Finance Institute highlighted the need for private investment, in addition to public sector funding, for the UK to meet its net zero and nature-positive ambitions. It said that between 44 to 97 billion of additional investment is needed over the next decade to meet the UK's nature-related targets, with a central estimate of 56 billion. And as we've heard, for Scotland, the figure is 20 billion. The UK figure is broken down into outcomes between 2022 and 2032 that, among others, include clean water, 8 billion, climate mitigation through biocarbon, that's 20 billion, and protecting or restoring biodiversity, that's around 19 billion. Our Chief Executive, Dr. Rhian-Marie Thomas, has said, having identified the scale of investment needed and where it is needed, we must now focus on unlocking barriers to the mobilisation of private finance into nature-positive projects and businesses right across the UK. And now the Green Finance Institute is taking action. So today I'm pleased to announce that at the end of November, we will be launching the Green Finance Institute's Hive, backed by the Esme Fairbairn Foundation. GFi Hive will be an information and solutions centre for financing nature in the UK. It will work with the financial sector to build momentum for investment, showcasing examples of private investments in nature and nature-based solutions, and sharing insights, research and reports. At the same time, the GFi Hive, led by the Institute's Helen Avery, who's in the front row, will be launching a cross-sector coalition to identify barriers to mobilising capital for nature in the UK and work with the finance sector to develop solutions. In collaboration with stakeholders across the UK, the coalition will co-design solutions to drive private investment into sustainable and regenerative agriculture, natural flood management, carbon emission reduction and avoidance, and biodiversity enhancement. In February, along with government, Natural England and the Access Foundation for Social Investment, the Environment Agency launched the Natural Environment Investment Readiness Fund. It's a £10 million fund that provides grants of up to £100,000 to environmental groups, local authorities, businesses and other organisations to develop projects that provide benefits to nature and attract private investment. This includes woodland creation, which provides habitats for wildlife, green spaces for the public and carbon sequestration, but could also benefit investors through timber revenues and carbon credits. Another example is the restoration of river catchments. As well as improving water quality and reducing flood risk, this would deliver financial incentives to water companies through reduced costs for water treatment. The aim of the fund is to create a pipeline of projects for the private sector to invest in and develop new funding models that can be replicated everywhere. The evidence from projects like these will improve understanding about how environmental outcomes should be attractive to investors. Another useful example could be the Ignition project, which the Environment Agency supports along with the Greater Manchester Combined Authority. Ignition is providing data that will help develop investable propositions for urban resilience. This summer, I attended the virtual opening of the Ignition Project's Living Lab at the University of Salford and was able to visit in person last month. The rain gardens, green roofs and sustainable urban drainage systems at the Living Lab are providing data to help develop robust business models for private investment at scale. And this will help to prepare for climate shocks, restore nature and create jobs. These are small projects, but we need to work out how to scale them up so that we can attract the trillions of finance to join the effort. According to estimates by the World Economic Forum, more than half of the world's economic output, $44 trillion of economic value generation, is moderately or highly dependent on nature. And nature's crisis makes economies more vulnerable to economic shocks like storms and droughts. The climate and nature emergencies are entwined in a dance macabre, but if these dangers are linked, then so are the solutions. With organisations like the Green Finance Institute and the Global Ethical Finance Initiative showing the way, we can see that investment in nature will not only deliver the goals of COP26, it can also create a legacy of long-term returns and prosperity. Thank you very much.